Hey everyone, it's Allie, and I gotta apologize ahead of time because I'm gonna literally burn your GPU. With Season 10 Torchlight coming out and Bing 2 being released, we're gonna be playing a spell burst spellcasting setup as our first build of the season that's going to literally block out the sun with the sheer amount of projectiles and spells it's gonna do. With this, we're gonna have an incredibly fast screen clear build that's going to be amazing for quite a lot of different farming strategies. That's going to have very respectable damage from level 1 all the way to time mark 8, making your progression extremely smooth at start. And from there, we're gonna automate our whole build and eventually in the end game basically become immortal. This build is pretty much everything I'm looking forward to in a build where it's fast, it's tanky, and it just does all content with no issues. And what I'm excited about here is that with Bink, we can literally play whatever we want to, as our hero traits are simply based around spells. So we can play a fire, lightning, or cold build, which is going to be very fun to test out and experiment with as we push further into the build. If you've never followed Allie Guide before, the way this is going to be structured is we are going to be doing daily updates where I'm going to be talking about my day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on. Talk about upgrades, different little bits of theory crafting that we've done and new discoveries. And I'm going to basically keep you updated with every single tiny little detail that we go through. In today's video, we're going to be discussing how to level and everything you might want to know to start off and to get to time mark 7 and time mark 8 with no issues. And then from there, in the day 2 update tomorrow, we're going to talk about all the different theory crafting that we did once we get to Endgame. There's also going to be a link in the description below that is just going to allow you to import my day 1 setup in game if you go over to Pro Builds, so you can just see everything I did directly in game. But unfortunately, if you've never played Torchlight before, we don't really have a planner or path of building or anything like that that can give you for you to be able to follow along with that's going to one-to-one hold your hand. I'm going to try my best to do everything I can in the video to explain all that for you. So with that said, let's start talking about how to level this. At level 1, you're going to get access to Fire Burst. It's going to be a skill that we're going to use to level all the way up until Endgame, where we're going to swap over to Split Firebolt, which is going to have a little bit better clearing than Fire Burst, while retaining basically the same amount of single target damage. At first, Fire Burst is going to be pretty lame, and it's not going to really be anything special, but once you get to level 15 and unlock your hero trait, you're then going to get access to Spell Burst, which is where our build is going to really kick off. Spell Burst is simply just a stacking buff that takes 2 seconds to fully ramp up, which will then get consumed by your next spell to do that many additional copies of your skill. In this build, we're going to be focusing pretty heavily on getting as many spell burst stacks as possible, so we do as many copies as we can every time it's ready, while also reducing the ramp up time as much as possible, ideally getting it to half a second or lower so we can basically block out the sun. The nice thing about Spell Burst is that they automatically target enemies for you, basically completely removing any need for aiming in this build, especially given that your own personal use of the skill is going to do relatively no damage in comparison to your spell bursted versions. To go along with that, we are also going to be running a compound source as our source of healing to begin with, but eventually once you get over to Netherrealm, you are going to want to drop it for a Secret Origin Unleash instead, which is going to give you a little bit of extra damage. We're going to be sticking to Blink as our main mobility source because this plus Magic Dash feels amazing with 2 charges, and we're going to then add in a Psychic Surge once you have the energy for it, just giving you a little bit of extra damage after every blink that you do. We're also going to add in a Mana Boil, which is going to just give you a little bit of extra passive damage. We don't really care about the mana consumption, given that we pretty much have no mana cost in general, so this can always just have 100% uptime with no issues. And then we're going to follow that up with a Scorch, along with a Terrain of Malice and a Preparation, so we just have an automatic curse around us that we don't really have to worry about. When it comes to your energy, I would recommend for you to focus on your main skill first and foremost, and then after that to spend some energy on Scorch, so you can set up an automated version of it, followed by Secret Origin Unleash, and then ideally Blink. For our passive skills, we're going to start off with the Thunder Magus. This is simply just going to give you a little bit of additional cast speed, which is going to feel quite nice, and then we're going to pair that up with a Charge Flames and a Domain Expansion as you push further into the build. You're not going to be able to run all 3 of these to begin with, so I'd recommend while leveling is to instead run a Swiftness just to make the whole leveling experience a little bit faster. Now on top of this, let's quickly talk about the treasure troves you're going to want to stop at to farm the unique items that they have to offer you. While you want to do every treasure trove at least once, there's some really powerful unique items in here that you really should stop and get that will make the whole leveling experience a whole lot easier. In chapter 1, we have Nectar Valley, where you should go farm out both the boots and the ring, as these are going to be with you all the way up until you get to Netherrealm, at which point you replace them with some random epic gear that you find on the ground. And then in chapter 2, in the Sanctuary of Solitude, we have the Brainwave Emitter, which is such a disgusting item that I don't even know when we're going to be replacing this in the endgame. +1 spell burst is way too good, and this will make you do significantly more damage. Finally, in chapter 3, we have the Hall of Grandiosity. We're going to want to go grab yourself a Photophobia. This gives you Beacon. So what you could do with this is you can go over to your passive tree and go over to Goddess of Knowledge and swap out Beacon to Peculiar Vibe for a little bit of extra damage. And we're also going to be able to farm ourselves a Scorching Tempo, which is a ridiculously strong 2-handed weapon that should easily carry you all the way up until time mark 3, time mark 4 before you need to replace it. I would recommend for you to do a few runs of this to grab yourself a high Charge Flames roll along with a medium Spellfire damage roll. And with that, you should notice a doubling, if not tripling, of your damage. When you do get a hold of this weapon, it's also going to be the time where we're going to choose to swap over from Fire Burst to Split Firebolt, as we're going to be just about entering Netherrealm, and this is going to feel significantly better when it comes to clear as well. Split Firebolt is pretty disgusting. This swap is going to be really simple because we're going to use the same exact gear, same exact capacity, nothing is going to change other than you simply just going over to your skill and replacing your active skill with Split Firebolt, along with multiple projectiles, jump, control spell, psychic burst, and slow projectiles. You're also going to want to go over to your skills and you're going to want to add in 8 precise projectiles along with a domain expansion once you do get yourself lich and have enough energy left over to have 2 supports on everything. And then later on, once you do end up dropping the weapon around time mark 3, time mark 4, you are going to want to swap out the domain expansion with a charged flames instead, as it'll give you a little bit of extra DPS. But Firebolt is going to play exactly the same way as you're playing Fire Burst. You don't have to think, just press a skill and you watch the whole screen melt. For our passive points, we're going to be picking up Goddess of Knowledge, followed by Magister, Lich, and then Elementalist. This is likely going to change quite a bit as we push further into the build, but to start off, these 3 just make sense and are really synergistic with everything that we do, but do keep in mind that there might be quite a lot of theory crafting to do here as we push the build further. We're taking Goddess of Knowledge because Beacon is simply too good, +2 spell burst is insane multiplier for our build, and then we also get to pick up Burning Touch for spell aggression, which gives you quite a lot of cast speed. This then further synergizes with Magister really well, as play safe then turns all of your cast speed into spell burst charge speed, allowing your spell burst to keep up with the stupid amount of cast speed you're gonna have. From there, Lich is just basically mandatory in every build because off the bean track allows you to fit in a lot more auras into your build than what is normally possible. And once you have both that and these mana compensation nodes at the bottom, you can go over to your skills, remove the swiftness, and instead run a domain expansion, a charge flames, and a thunder magus. This is going to require you to have 2 supports on all 3 of them for off the bean track, and you can possibly drop the protection field from the Thunder Magus and put a restraint in here to make this work a little bit sooner, but do keep in mind this is something you're not going to really be able to do until you get all the way to Netherrealm to have enough energy for it. Lastly, we're picking up Elementalist because it's going to synergize really well with a unique item that we're looking to pick up in the early game that we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. Next, let's quickly go over all of our hero traits. So the unique thing about Bink is that you get to choose both the left and the right node every time, with most of these having a choice of multiple nodes for you to choose between. Unfortunately, most of these kind of just suck and aren't very good, especially in the early game, so our pathing here is going to be pretty cookie cutter. Starting off, we're going to be picking up Supersonic Protocol for movement speed. For our second choice node, we're going to be picking up Mind Domain, as Troublemaker is literally unsustainable, especially with no injure buffer and no good recovery in the early game, so we kind of have to go with this, along with us picking up Auto Ingenuity Program, which is then going to completely automate Creative Genius for you, making you never have to press your F key to trigger your Ingenuity overload. If you don't mind pressing the button, then picking up Ingenious Chaos Principle is also very solid, but I think most people are likely just going to pick up this, as making the build more automated is going to make it more fun. For your level 75 traits, unfortunately, Brainstorm is just complete garbage. You are never going to eliminate enemies with this, and this is going to effectively do nothing 99% of the time, while Flash of Brilliance gives you more explosions, which gives you more Ingenuity overloads, which just overall makes your build feel a lot more snappier. For your last choice node, you actually do have a choice here on what you want. Personally, I recommend to pick up Hyper Resonance Hypothesis. It just makes your spell burst charge a lot faster, so it's going to feel better for clear. But if you are fighting bosses, or if you're doing Traveler, or if you just want more single target damage, Inspiration Delivery is also ridiculous, as it summons additional copies of yourself to just simply spam your main skill for you. But the downside here is that they can't move, so for clearing they feel like complete garbage because you just clear the screen before they even get to attack once. Lastly, let's go over what kind of gearing you're going to want to look for while leveling, and then what our goals are going to be once we get to endgame. For leveling, just keep it simple. Just look for evasion, armor bases everywhere, and try to get yourself some life and resistances. You don't really need anything fancy, but if you can find yourself cast speed and intelligence in your gear, that would be a pretty nice DPS increase. And then try to look for added spell damage on your rings and amulets. It doesn't matter what kind of added spell damage it is, all of it is good, and it's going to be basically the same thing, with you wanting to prefer added fire damage as you get into your mid 30s and 40s, as that'll start pulling ahead a little bit. For your weapon, just look for spell damage, cast speed, fire damage, elemental damage, literally whatever stats look like they would be a DPS increase, because there's nothing specific we really need to look for, and with that, you should have a pretty comfortable time leveling. When we get to endgame, our goals are going to be fairly simple. We're going to want to start off as a life-based builds, where your goal is going to be to get to about 1.2k total life. And then as you push into time mark 3 and 4, you're going to want to start getting some energy shield on your gear. And you're going to look to try and get to maybe about 1.5k life with about 1.5 ES. This is then going to allow you to live time mark 7 fairly easily. And we're going to be using that as a jumping off point to then swap over into a full energy shield setup, where our goal is going to be to hit 4,000 energy shield or so, and then for us to use our life as a reservation pool for more auras. You're going to get quite a lot of crafting currency, so try to craft the energy shield on all of your gear as you go that has a decent life roll, and that should very easily be able to transition you into a hybrid setup. What I'd also recommend for you to do is to pick up the life regain, energy shield regain hybrid node in Goddess of Knowledge. I personally got the Timemark 7 without needing them, but if you do want to have a little bit of a comfier time, I highly recommend these nodes. And then from there, once you do start getting into your mid 80s and have everything that you want, you're simply just going to come over to Magister and start picking up a bunch of energy shield nodes. They're going to boost your ES quite quickly. This 3% ES on defeat node also feels really good, and it just allows you to use that energy shield as a buffer in the early time marks. And I personally felt like rushing this node early on did have quite a big impact on my ability to live. In terms of your actual gear, your first priority is going to be saving around 5 to 10 FE or so. You can mostly make this money by just selling your energy cores, your precious embers, your Netherrealm resonances, and just whatever other random currency you have as you progress through. And then you're going to take that money and buy yourself a new weapon, as the unique weapon that you got from the chapter 3 is not going to hold your hand for forever. All I looked for on a weapon here was just some spell damage, added fire, and cast speed Ellie damage, nothing too fancy. And then I also went and crafted an energy shield regain suffix on it, which pretty much is taking care of all of my sustain, along with a 3% energy shield on kill. From this, I would recommend to go and grab yourself an Holy Prayer. This thing is 1 FE and it gives you access to agility blessings, which otherwise we wouldn't have. We are going to get these through a slate later on, but to begin with, this is an incredibly powerful item, so I would recommend to grab yourself one of these as soon as you have an FE lying around. After that, your first major upgrade is going to be to save for Grasp of Truth. These gloves simply give you access to penetrating, which gives you quite a lot of damage if you can inflict all the different infiltrations on enemies, which gives you quite a lot of damage if you can inflict all 3 infiltrations on enemy. Luckily, this is going to be really easy for us to do because we're taking Elementalist as our 4th passive tree, which gives us base elemental ailment damage and added damage of all 3 elemental types. They're going to be igniting, numbing, and chilling pretty much everything instantaneously, giving you the full effect of these gloves at all times. They're a disgusting DPS upgrade, and we're going to be sticking with them for quite a while. After that, I would recommend for you to save for Frozen Ripples. This is a new pair of boots that came out that give you +1 spell burst along with a lot of movement speed, and these just feel really good. And to pair that up with a +1 spell burst belt that just further increases your DPS from there. And then from there, simply start looking for a new chest plate that has ideally a bunch of life on it to begin with, but then eventually swap into an energy shield base with some hybrid stats on it. And eventually my plan here is to recraft the life into % ES to get ready for a full ES swap. We're going to be sticking to Photophobia for quite a while, so don't worry about replacing this. I think the only thing that is going to beat this would be a False Gods with double intelligence per level, but those are quite expensive at around 100 FE each, so they probably aren't worth trying to save for immediately. And then I don't know when Brainwave Emitter is going to be replaced because this helmet is just way too broken. In terms of Divinity Slates, I don't really know what we're going to be doing with those. I know we definitely want a +1 spell burst one, but most Divinity Slates, especially on day 1, are way too expensive and out of budget for pretty much everyone. So that's going to be something we're going to go over in day 2. If you have any questions on anything that we went over here, do feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so feel free to come by there and come hang out with all the kitties, or if you simply want to come and ask me a question, feel free to ask me there. And if you want to see any upgrades and any sort of tier crafting we do before the day 2 update video hits tomorrow, I would recommend to come by and come hang out with everyone as well. With all that said, kitties, I hope you have fun with Bink. I've been having so much fun with this, and it's been extremely fun to play, and I have a very clear vision for where we're going to be going with this build, and that vision sounds really fun. So the next few days should be really interesting as our build shapes up into an absolute monster. With all that said, kitties, I hope you have one of us today. I hope you have fun with the build if you come and play along with me, and I'll see you all in the next video.